Thailand has transformed radically in the last 25 years. Its GDP has exploded from like $500 per capita to nearly $5,000. As the poor have become less poor, the rich have become more and more rich. So the size of the gap between the poor and the rich is very similar to certain cities in the U.S. And in fact, Bangkok and Bridgeport, Connecticut have strong similarities when it comes to the wealth gap and the inequality gap.
Bridgeport at one time, back in the 50s and 60s, was a very rich community because it had manufacturing, it had jobs. You could walk out one door after getting fired in the morning and get a job in the afternoon across the street. Today, that doesn't exist.
Things was a lot better. You didn't see as many homeless. You didn't see every time you go to the corner stores, people begging you for a dime or a nickel or a quarter.
This was part of an enormous complex owned by the Remington Arms factory. In the early 80s, this just went dead, and GE owned it for years and years, and it stood here almost mocking Bridgeport. Bridgeport's a rough town. There's a lot of crime here. There's a lot of dysfunction. There's guns. There's drugs. There are drive-by shootings. Not 15 miles down I-95, Greenwich is one of the most wealthy communities in the United States. It would be wrong to say that this is how the other half lives here in Fairfield County, because this is a great deal more than 50% more affluent than Bridgeport. Greenwich has an enormous number of people who are living at that magical level of 15% tax and below, largely because their tax rates are capital gains taxes. These are people who are professional investors who are able to essentially not redistribute their wealth. One of the things that marks Fairfield County is that the Gini coefficient, which is this measurement of the distribution of wealth and opportunity, essentially, is almost identical to that of Thailand.
In Bangkok, if you want to travel from the depths of poverty to the heights of luxury, you don't actually have to travel that far. This very luxurious, glitzy shopping district is only about 7 or 8 miles from Klong Toi, Bangkok's most notorious slum. Right now we're in Klong Toi. As neighborhoods in Bangkok go, it probably has one of the worst reputations for drug use and poverty. It's working class, it's gritty, there are open sewers.
เริ่มแรกที่มาอยู่ก็ลำบากครับเริ่มแรกจากบ้านเก่านะครับน้ำไฟเราไม่มีขยับขยายก็ดีขึ้นครับมันก็มีถนนหนทางไม่เป็นสลัมแบบเมื่อก่อน
ชีวิตถ้าชุมชนเนี้ยมันก็ต้องดิ้นรนนะหาเช้ากินค่ำ
คนเราก็มีมือ10 มือมีเท้า10 เท้าคนเราก็ต้องสู้ต้องทำงานถ้าไม่ทำงานแล้วใครจะให้เรากินอะไรประมาณนี้ค่ะ
In Thailand, there's this concept of high so, which is a word that borrows from high society. And this neighborhood, Klong Toi, is about as far as you can get from high so.
พวกไฮโซพวกสุขุมวิทพวกที่เขามีบ้านหลังใหญ่ๆนะเขาก็ยังระเกียจกันอยู่ก็ยังมองด้านหน้ากันอยู่บางครั้งเคยไปทำงานให้บ้านเขาเงี้ยนะเขาก็จะต้องให้คนเข้าไปด้านเป้าเราคนหนึ่งคือเขาไม่ไว้ใจ
As Thailand is developed and become more wealthy, the lines of class are more starkly drawn. As their income has gone up and as their education level has increased, they've become more politically aware and more politically active. Thailand and the U.S. have something in common. They've both had these street-level political movements entirely focused on the wealth disparity. Occupy Wall Street was a picnic compared to what happened here. This particular mall, if you had come here 2 years ago, anti-establishment protesters called the Red Shirts ringed the whole area with barbed wire, bamboo staves, and staged this huge anti-establishment protest. And it ended with about 90 people dead after an army crackdown and this mall in flames.
something happened in the mid-70s where income just stopped being distributed. Social mobility became very different, very much against the kind of thought that we have of what the American dream is.
I bet you the average person out here that works in Bridgeport don't make more than $30,000 a year. I'm talking about with an education, with a degree, and they don't even work in Bridgeport.
Bridgeport's stuck with a very low tax base, very little help from the suburbs, and a kind of not in my backyard attitude toward its people, who are welcome to come clean their houses and cut their lawns as long as they get back on the bus and go back to Bridgeport at night.
What they actually did was create a de facto apartheid in Bridgeport, a segregation based on race and class, and it has become more pronounced over the years.
And that kind of misery breeds contempt on the part of people who don't live in that, and it breeds resentment on the part of the people who do live here, who see that there's another world, and for some reason, for some unfathomable reason, they're not invited. Place is quite a mess.